Hey guys, it's Hugh here. I'm back with the next installment in my Get to Know Co series. This time I'm going to cover one of my favorite tanks, that's right, the British Comet Tank. The Comet Tank is one of the most well-rounded vehicles in Company of Heroes 2. It has one of the longest firing ranges in the game, plus it's strong against both infantry and vehicles. Let's take a look at some of its stats and veterancy. It has 800 health, which means it's going to take 5 penetrating shots from an AT gun, or most tanks to kill, or 7 penetrating shots from, say, something like a Panzerschreck. Its armor is 290 in the front and 180 in the rear. The mid-range penetration, to give you an idea, of a Pak 40 is about 200. So that means that the AT gun only has about 70% chance of penetrating when it fires, and then when it does, it's actually got to penetrate this thing 5 times in order for the tank to die. Other tanks like the Panzer IV only have a mid-range penetration of just 110, so that's basically a 40% chance of penetrating, and then you still gotta land 5 shots, so it's quite tanky of a tank. On the giving end, it has a gun penetration of about 190 at mid-ranges. So that's enough to almost guarantee every shot will penetrate against many Axis medium tanks. Before we get into the abilities, let's take a look quickly at the veterancy. Again, I've mentioned hovering over these stars. You can get an idea of what's happening. At Vet 1, it changes the smoke rounds, which I'm going to cover in a minute, to phosphorus rounds. These phosphorus rounds will damage and kill infantry. At Vet 2, you get an increase in your turret spin, so that's how quickly that the turret will spin left and right. You get an increase of about 35%, and it's also going to improve the accuracy of the main gun by 30%. At Vet 3, you get an increase in the top speed of the tank by 30%, an acceleration increase of 20%, and also the crew will automatically throw out grenades when they're near enemies. So you don't have to manually click this ability for them to throw it. They will do it on their own. And again, I'll show you that in a minute. So let's take a look at some of the abilities. I'm going to turn on the Fog of War, which I've typically had off. The tank can see an okay amount. But as you can see, it can actually shoot quite farther than it can see. However, one really cool ability that this tank has is this Tank Commander ability. This is a must-have on this tank. It's only 25 munitions, and it does several things. It gives you an increase in vision, so let's see what kind of increase in vision we're going to get. When I click this, that's a pretty big increase if you ask me. Also, you're going to increase the accuracy of your gun, as well as give a veterancy boost to the tank, so it's going to get to those vet ranges even faster. One of the most underused abilities that this tank has is this smoke shot. The smoke shot, it's 20 munitions and will fire a plume of smoke. Let's give it a shot here. That will block vision and stop things from firing automatically. The cool thing about it is the range is insane. The range is 80, which if you're unfamiliar with ranges of fire, things like the Elephant tank only have a range of 70, so this can fire smoke farther than even an Elephant or an ISU-152 can shoot back. Making cover. Oops. Sorry about that. You can see it's got quite a long range for that smoke shell. One other cool thing about this ability in particular is that you can fire while on the move. So if I give an order for him to, say, drive into the enemy base, clicking this smoke shot won't stop him from driving into the enemy base. So I can shoot. Of course, I've got the instant production on, so that means I can do this as much as I want. But the tank will continue to drive, will continue to do whatever I ask him to do. I want him to back up and go over here, and he will continue to fire. Actually, I shift-click the order. But he will continue to fire as long as he's in movement. And I'm not actually even issuing a shift-click order here. This is just a regular click. He continues to drive. It doesn't interrupt the drive command. So let's take a look at this Veterancy 1 ability. I've given the tank Veterancy 1, which is going to change out this smoke shell to a white phosphorus shell that will damage them. Again, because I've got this insane range, if I know where a tank or a anti-tank gun has been camping, I can actually fire at it and do some damage. Let's take a look at this here. I'm going to fire. If we look here, we can see this is outside of their range, and this white phosphorus shell is going to heavily damage this squad. In fact, if we're lucky, nope, that's all the damage that we're going to get. But that means that basically one shot, a couple tickles. I'm even going to approach this from the front. One shot, and he's almost dead. The machine gun finished it off before it could even get a second shot. What a powerful ability. The next ability I want to cover is the Cruzz self-defense. Basically, the Comet Tank will throw a grenade out of the top and damage enemy weapon crews. So if I click here, unfortunately they've clumped together, so if I click here to throw this grenade, they're going to take some serious damage. I might even wipe the gun. Nope, not quite. But serious damage from this gun, from this grenade rather. The last thing I want to talk about actually applies to most tanks in general, but if you're maybe typically an Axis player and you're used to the top-mounted MG, if you tech a top-mounted MG, it'll basically shoot in any direction. With some tanks that don't have the top-mounted MG, you actually get the most damage per second if you actually point the tank directly at it. So if I park this tank next to this Axis squad here, and I uncheck for free fire, of course I'll get the main gun to fire, but I also get this coaxial mounted MG to fire. But I'm really not getting the most damage possible. If I face the tank such that the hull mounted MG can also fire, I'm actually now getting extra damage. I get damage from both the small MG on the hull as well as the coaxial mounted MG. The last thing I want to mention about this tank is actually its ability to spot for itself. If you have the tank commander upgrade purchased, then you actually can A-move this tank around the battlefield. It's one of the few tanks that can spot for itself and actually has the range to outrange most infantry-based AT weapons. So I've stopped here. These guys don't even have the ability to fire back right now, and I can fire at range and kind of kite these guys as they push in. I can even scoot in just a little bit to give you an indication that they will fire back, but I can actually back out and I can fire at range that they cannot. Pretty cool. Okay, so I think I've said the last thing I'm going to cover, I think I've said that twice now, but there is actually one additional item that I do want to bring up. In order to get the Comet, you have to tech the hammer specialization, and the hammer specialization has this cool ability. It's called track vehicle. Tank crews are trained to track the enemy vehicles they have hit. Vehicles that are hit remain visible for an extended period of time. So without that, if I fire on this vehicle that I know is hiding there, if my tank will hit, come on.
On the attack. Stopping.
It's going to be visible for right at 3 seconds. Let's go ahead. I'm going to turn on instant production, and let's add Comet, and let's see what kind of a time difference that we've got. So once we have that teched, if we fire, and if I'm lucky enough to get a hit here,
On target. Firing now.
that 3 seconds
Stopping.
actually goes to a whopping 12 seconds. Look how long this thing is visible. So things like, say, a Firefly, which have a nearly 10-second reload, now all of a sudden can fire, and if their target doesn't move, they can continue to track it well into the fog of war. Pretty cool. Well, that does it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you've got another vehicle that you'd like for me to cover, let me know in the comments below. If you got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.